Good evening, good evening, good evening, and welcome to this week's episode of the Hearts of Men podcast, hosted by the Empowering Perspective community. We're your hosts for this evening conversation. My name is Dwayne Dwyer. I go by the Mindset Coach, and I'm joined with my brothers. Right beside me, I have Mr. Uncle Junior himself, also known as the Consistency Coach. I have the son of Timothy, also known as the Available Man. I also have with me below us, we also have poor man's Dr. Phil, also the man of many hats. And right beside him, we have our brother across the table with Mr. Christopher McClellan, also the angry guy trying to learn. Gentlemen, how are you on this beautiful day?
Strong.
Strong. I like that. That's a good one. Strong is good.
I'm all right.
Strong is good.
I'm trying to see how I can get some strength. Nah,
Yeah. Give me
not strength.
Scrimp.
strength.
SKRENTHGTH. Scrimp.
Son of Timothy, how are you, brother?
Hey, I'm good. I'm good.
I
Yes,
appreciate
sir.
that. I appreciate that. You gotta kind of bypass them, man. They be scrolling through Facebook and all kind of stuff like that. You know.
Is,
Listen,
is the beard coming back,
huh?
or I'm asking Son of Timothy, is the beard coming back, or is gone for good? I know you told us
It's
why last week.
yeah. It's. I told the line. Yeah,
No, you
it's
told us
shadow.
why. You told us why last week, the reason for it. So
Yeah.
since that is over, I wonder, are you just going back? You're just going to keep it?
No, his wife told
Yeah.
him to cut it off. That's what it is.
We coming back. We coming back.
All
I'm
right.
coming back stronger.
We
Listen,
there.
listen. As we continue to press forward, we getting off track already, man. Cut it out. Listen,
My
I want
fault.
to make sure that now you get. I want to make sure that I welcome everybody to this evening's conversation. As always, we appreciate you joining us, and we know that you can be any other place on this Friday evening, but you elect to be here with us, and we do not take that lightly. So it's always good to see you guys in the chat, Miss Bernadette Simmons, Lisa Keys, Crystal Everett, and also Miss Charlotte Jordan. It is always a pleasure to see you. And for anybody else out there who is joining us, by all means, get in the chat. Just announce yourself so that we can celebrate you because that's what we like to do in this community. We like to celebrate the people that join us every Friday night because we appreciate you, we value you, and with last but not least, we want to make sure that we add value to you on this particular conversation. So as we continue to press forward, because gentlemen, we have been talking about conflict resolution now for the past couple of weeks, and actually the past couple of weeks we were talking conflict. Let's just go and call it what it is. We were talking conflict because we want to get it all out there, and we want to talk about different types of conflict because I think it's important, right? So now that we're pressing forward, we're going to kind of get after what it's really all about. So again, with this particular conversation, is how to dismantle conflict. Now, as we're going forward, we've already talked about what conflict is. So if you just scroll the definition at the bottom, I'm not going to read it because we already talked about it. So if you missed it, go back and take a look at it. But again, if you live longer than a week, you know that conflict is inevitable. I don't care who you are, I don't care what you do, you're going to deal with conflict in some shape, form, or fashion. So the problem when it comes down to conflict is that in today's polarized society, escalating conflicts due to differing opinions are becoming common, staining relationships and hindering productive dialogue. There is an urgent need to equip individuals with effective strategies to transform disagreements into opportunities for understanding and growth. So addressing the growing conflicts in our polarized society requires an innovative approach that acknowledges and navigates the complexities of inequality, cultural differences, and communication gaps that we spoke about in the past couple of weeks. By integrating strategies such as active listening, emotional intelligence, and perspective framing, we can transform these disagreements into opportunities for empathy, mutual respect, and shared growth, ultimately fostering a more inclusive and harmonious society. This is the reason why we created the Empowering Perspective membership program. As a member, we will take you on a journey of deep awareness, then provide a process of change, which becomes your guide to redefining your comfort zone. This is not just a membership program; it is a family that is committed to your self development and celebrating your accomplishments. Discover the power within. Join the Empowering Perspective program today. And if you look on YouTube, right below the screen, you'll see the join button. Click there. If you were on any other social media platform, look in the show notes. You will see some empowering videos down there. Just click on those links and it takes you straight there. Now, over the past couple of weeks, we touched on 4 different talking points when it came down to conflict. So talking point number 1 was inequality. Talking point number 2 was polarization. Number 3 was lack of communication. And number 4 was ultimately cultural differences. Now, if I'm being honest with you, I really want to kind of clear up any conflict, confusion, or whatever the case may be, because out of those 4, what you'll find is that 3 is a reason and 1 is the escalation of. So when you look at conflict overall, on the lower end of conflict, you will have what is known as differences and misunderstanding. And those are just a normal part of the communication experience, which can easily be overcome, but you have to work through the process and actually get to the point so you have a desire to understand another person's perspective. When these are not managed, they tend to grow into what is known as disagreements, which require more effort to resolve. And when conflict is avoided, I'm going to say this part again, when conflict is avoided or concerns of others are ignored, conflicts can rise to the level of what is called discord. At this level, conflict spills over the original issues and begins to affect all other interactions. If this continues, it turns into what is known as polarization, which is characterized by severe negative emotions and behaviors severe negative emotions and behaviors and little hope of reconciliation. That brings us to where we are right now, which is a concept called thoughtful disagreement. Now, I will be transparent with you because I want to give everybody the resource, right? This is the resource where I got this concept from, right? There's a book called Principles by Ray Dalio. It's about 550 pages. It is a very good read. And if I think you take the time to go through it, not only does he talk about conflict, but he talks about a number of other things that I think would be interesting. So, first and foremost, I just want to go off the top of your head, gentlemen. First question I have for you: how would you describe the concept, just without me even going into the concept yet? How would you describe the concept of thoughtful disagreements, and how do you imagine it working for the scenarios we gave the past couple of weeks with Carlos and Maria?
I will start with this, but I don't have anything for Carlos and Maria. My mind works a little bit different, so I need a little bit refresher. But I will say this right off the top of my head. I actually wrote down thoughtful disagreement, and I was trying to figure out what it was. And I remember a few weeks ago, Chris had did something like that, and it pretty much whatever the word or we were talking about, the definition he gave was pretty much what the word was. So that's what I'm getting out of this thoughtful disagreement. So if I'm having a disagreement with Christopher and I'm being thoughtful in my technique or my approach in how I am communicating, my body language, whatever is going into the conversation, even though we're in a disagreement, I am being thoughtful about my feelings, his feelings, and the overall conversation to whereas we hopefully get to a solution and not just have a disagreement that leads to an argument or, Chris punched me in my nose. Putting his whole back into it and stuff like that.
Because he's strong.
Is this what we are doing on this fine Friday evening?
I'm just saying, like, if we're disagreeing, and I'm thinking that if I'm not thoughtful in our disagreement, there could be, you might not like that.
So would you be thoughtful out of fear? I'm just using that as an example because that's the example that you use.
Good. Yeah, I wouldn't be thoughtful out of disagreement. I think that men in general, when we have conversation, we just always there. So it's normal for us to just be thoughtful and to just think about it. But it's not based out of fear. It's out of, the disagreement is not the biggest thing. It's the solution. So I don't really care about the disagreement. It's okay to disagree. It's okay. We don't have to agree. But I think we have to be thoughtful in our approach as we disagree with people. So mine is just that. taking thought into the disagreement when you're having a disagreement with the person.
And to add what Unc was saying, I think the thoughtful part is because I have a care and concern for them. So if it was somebody I didn't know, I probably wouldn't care. I probably would flip them off. But since it's a person that I have a relationship with and I respect and I want to continue the relationship, now I want to say, okay, let me listen. So I'm thoughtful in my hearing what he's saying. I don't have to agree, but since he's passionate about it, I have to sit back and listen so that I can understand at least his perspective. May not be my perspective, but the thoughtful disagreement part is the care and concern that I have for him as a friend. So now I can sit back and listen and not necessarily agree, but I can understand his perspective.
So what I'm hearing you say is that there's no need, and I'm minimizing, kind of baseline it really. You're saying that there's no need to have a thoughtful disagreement with someone outside of a relationship. A relationship means that I need to exercise thought when it comes down to disagreements.
I think it would have to be a situation because if it's in passing where you really don't have time, if somebody argue, oh, you stepped on my shoes, I ain't even about to use my energy for that. Or if it's somebody driving and you cut me off, not using my energy for that. But if it's something where we have the time and we are able to actually have a dialogue to where other people around, because if other people see it, I don't want to be seen as, oh, he's snapping for no reason or whatever. So if we can squash it, especially when you do things in front of kids, as grown people, somebody has to show people that you can calm the situation down without it escalating to blows, guns, and all that other stuff.
I like it.
I would say that in reference to thoughtful disagreements is pretty much just like Unc said. You're thinking about the disagreement and you're trying to find a common ground, and you're not trying to just be right just to be right. You understand what I'm saying? With Carlos and Maria and the differences that they have, I honestly believe that if they want to progress, they're going to have to be thoughtful in their disagreements, because most of the scenarios are about how they partner up to take care of their responsibility. You understand what I'm saying? It's not about them. So in that aspect of it, you can disagree, but at least take in what the other person is saying, so that way you can find a common ground. That's what I think a thoughtful disagreement is.
I like
And
it.
like I said, I always listen to people as if they have something that they can teach me. So that's the thoughtful side of the disagreement. I'm listening to you because you might have a jewel that you just dropped, and I might not even catch it if I'm in my feelings, or if I'm just trying to pick apart your argument just to be right and just for you to be wrong, and then it turns into a competition that's unnecessary.
I like it. I like it. Just to bring everybody back up to speed, Carlos and Maria were the one who were having an issue because Maria, based upon her profession, thought it would be a good idea to put their 16-year-old daughter on birth control, and Carlos wasn't having it. He was out in his feelings. So let me turn the floor over to my youngest brother on the panel, and let him have at it.
Man, I think I'm gonna be the least profound in this one on this, because when I think about thoughtful disagreement, the first thing that comes to my mind is you cannot approach the disagreement with a pre-desired outcome, because that's where everything that all my brothers just said comes to play, and that's the first domino that knocks them all down. You can't come in already set in your mind that this is the outcome I desire, because if I say anything that's even seems as if it's leading the other direction, even if I'm agreeing with you, you start arguing, or you ready to defend and you ready to fight, and now your blood pressure's up and you can't hear nothing else I got to say because your adrenaline's running and you're ready to fight. And that a lot of us do it, right? and that keeps you from being able to be thoughtful. So the first step is come in with an honest desire to get the other person's opinion and feedback, because that's what's necessary. Then how do I take what I'm feeling and what you're feeling and come together with one sound outcome? Because what is the purpose of this conversation? What are we trying to achieve? Is it you just trying to make sure that I say yes to give her the birth control, or is it we're going to have an honest discussion and determine whether or not this is the best decision for our child, or for whatever the case may be? So when it comes to Carlos and Maria, I think that they both need to take a step back from their position, because one is coming saying, I'm a medical professional, this is what I want to do. And the other one's coming saying, I want my daughter to stay pure always. I'm a man, that's my baby girl. But then the question has to come into play, how do we make this, how do we make this mirror each other? What do we do next? Because if it's not what do we do next, and it's all about how do I get my way, all thoughtfulness go out the window.
So I love what you're saying. I want to add a different spin to what you said. And it's not to take away from anything. I can come into a conversation with a particular desire for a hopeful outcome. There's nothing wrong with that. When I come into the conversation with a prescripted thought on what your response should be to my perspective, that's where the problem exists. So we both should come to the conversation with a desire for a higher outcome. That's right. But when I come to the conversation, we're already having in my mind how you should respond to me. That's where we're getting to error. Because everybody has a right to their own opinion. Everybody has the right to feel the way that they feel. I just don't have to accept you projecting your feelings on me. That's where we have to make sure that we're clear about the way that we communicate, so forth and so on. And I'm loving you guys' response, man. I kind of want to get some of these. As long as you gentlemen are done, I don't want to take away, because Uncle Junior, it looked like he was about to click on something.
I was, and then I was like, no. I said, let me see what you got to say.
Okay. I was going to bring some people from the chat, but if you had something you wanted to add, go ahead.
No, let's roll with the chat.
All right, let's roll with the chat. So first and foremost, I missed a lot of people. I do apologize because we kind of got started. I wanted to get into it because I think it's going to be a lot of information tonight. Miss Herbal Alchemist, welcome. Miss Angela Stallings, welcome to the show. Good to see you. Cassandra McKenzie, Michelle Ray, great to see you guys. Natasha White, welcome. Lisa Keys, I think I spoke with you already. Cassandra, I think I just spoke to you. Okay, so great. We got everybody in the chats now. So I want to go and grab, I like the comment Friday. That's hilarious to me. Miss Herbal Alchemist, she said, I'm sorry, go ahead. That's about 65% of the problem. A lot of women and men won't listen to understand. They will listen to respond because they are emotional at the time and want to get their point across. Absolutely. 100% accurate. And as we already know, because we talked about it several times, when my emotions go up here, my ability to process information slows down. It's like a computer that is just inundated with cookies and it's just moving slow. That's what your thought processes do when your emotions take control. So great point. Miss Natasha White says, words of wisdom. Greatly appreciate that. I think she is talking to Miss Verbal Alchemist. So Lisa Keys says that acknowledging and respecting the viewpoints of others while trying to understand their viewpoint and concerns of others. I like that. Great response. Ms. Herbal Alchemist has more. There is no thoughtfulness in disagreement, and it's hard to even do that. You truly have to be mindful of the others' feels, and you can tell a lot about someone from the situation, but a lot of folks don't. Gentlemen, your thoughts?
I think speaking of this, I don't know why, or Maria and Carlos, right? Carlos, Maria is a health professional, so she sees it one way. She has facts on her side one way. he sees it from his perspective, and his facts are certain things, maybe pregnancy, maybe disease, maybe promiscuity, or whatever. So they have to be able to bring those things together and say, okay, we're both speaking factual information of how we feel. Now let's come to a resolution of what to do, what's best for our child and our situation. Because what people will do is they will bicker with one another. And I know people will say, well, I don't need no more friends. So they quick to cut relations off instead of actually realizing that the more friends and family I have, the more people I have on my side, the more of a community I have, instead of cutting everybody off.
Absolutely.
I would say, you know, what makes it hard is when I truly believe down to my soul what I'm saying is the gospel truth. Like, I know, Coach, but I say like because sometimes you just really believe strongly in your position, and sometimes that's what makes it hard. But I think Coach said something that I always say: what is your end goal? What are we trying to accomplish from this argument? Right? Because last week we spoke about, you know, they just get up and do it anyway behind your back. Then why'd you come to me in the first place? Right? Like, defeats the point of us sitting here arguing and sweating if you're gonna go do it. But so if the reason you came to me is because you honestly want my opinion, then let's be honest about both sides of the information. Be willing or value, and I know that this is a trigger spot for some people, but value me enough to at least take into thought what I'm saying or how I feel. And if you can't do that, that says a lot about the relationship more than just the person. That says a lot about that relationship.
See, here's why I like what you just said. Not the fact that you said you feel it down with it's down in your soul. You know, that's deep. That's that, you know, grandmother moaning because they want their baby to come home in the middle of the night, right? But here's why I like what you said, because the last thing you said is that it says a lot about the relationship. And I think a lot of times we don't necessarily get that. We don't necessarily get that my response in the relationship kind of shines light to the other person about my perspective of the relationship. And I think when you think into that, like that's one to sleep on. Like you think into that, that really carries a lot of weight, because the thing that I would normally do for you, when even though I may not have been put in the situation to do it, when I'm in the situation and I need you to do that thing that I would normally do, but then you don't do it, it kind of shows me that I kind of value this relationship a little bit more than you. Let me scale back a bit. Maybe this relationships need to be brought down. And I'm just talking relationships in general. I'm not talking significant other. I'm not talking husband and wife. I'm just talking relationship in general. When I observe your behavior isn't likened to what we said relationship was between each other, then I'm gonna have to scale it back just a little bit, just so I can match your intensity, right? And it doesn't mean that, oh, I stay up here to try to put, no. If you're showing me where you are, then I need to accept it. If not, we're going to be at odds. We're going to be bickering. We're going to be fighting. It's going to be a whole bunch of this, that, and a whole bunch of tussling. And that's both. And again, that's all types of relationships, like man, woman, man, whatever. It doesn't matter, right? When they show you what they view the relationship as being, accept it. Be okay with it. And that's not a bad thing. It's a reality thing. Because that's deep down in my soul, by the way. So yeah. So moving forward, Lisa Keys. Okay, brother. You about to say something? That guy. You about to say something?
No, sir.
Okay,
I'm good. I'm good. I'm good.
No, I thought you were unmuting. You know, I know when you grab that button, you're ready to go.
Coach,
Yeah,
can I
man.
go to Alibi? Can you go back to that other one?
Go back up one.
I don't know if it's devil advocate or what, but I had some thought about this. So the person said there is no thoughtfulness in a disagreement. So I want to break this down a little bit. So for me, I think that you can have thoughtfulness in a disagreement. And, you know, like I said, if me and Chris are disagreeing about something, I can be disagreeable I can disagree with him without being disagreeable. You know what I mean? We don't necessarily have to agree. And then I think, you know, when this person has said something about being mindful of the other, I even meant the other person's feelings. I think that may sometimes, I think that's okay, but sometimes feelings don't matter depending on what we're talking about. If we're talking about X, Y, and Z, sometimes we have to have the conversation, and it's going to be disagreeable. But if we are to get to a solution, sometimes we have to take out our feelings, because we're not necessarily discussing the feelings. We may be discussing the behavior or the situation or something else in that moment. So I just wanted to add that to the conversation.
Absolutely, absolutely. And again, I want to just say this because I know a lot of people think a lot about feelings and feelings and feelings, and we're not saying that feelings don't matter. What we're saying, compared to the truth, they come second. The truth will always come number one. That's the thing we have to always keep in mind. So where do we leave off at? Yes, avoiding personal attacks or negative language. Absolutely, absolutely. And again, I also want to say, don't enter into an arena and then start complaining when you get met in the arena that you went into as well. That's something to keep in mind. Don't throw it like the old folks used to say, don't throw the rock and hide the hand. When you throw the rock, be prepared for another one to come back. I'm throwing boulders back. No, I'm joking. So
You preaching now.
I'm just
Yeah.
I'm just being honest. You have to be listen, I think this is where transparency has to come in at. Don't enter into something and then expect what's the word, compassion after you started something. No, that's not how it works. Like in most cases, when you go into what we tend to call the escalation of force, right, it doesn't get met with kindness. That's not reality, because again, you're asking that person to do something that you're not doing. And so when you look at it from that perspective, that's unauthentic. So, well, great point. Cassandra said, "It is me not providing if I'm right, not proving if I'm right." I'm sorry. We sit and we discover what is true and working with facts and growing in that. Absolutely. Michelle Ray says, "Thoughtful disagreement is the ability to listen and accept the perspective of of the other person and not disregarding their thoughts and ideas to get to an end state." Absolutely. I love Uncle Junior's thought. I appreciate that. Let me see. Also, it ain't always to agree. It's about considering the other person and not what you believe is right. So yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So yeah, let's keep it rolling, because I appreciate your guys' comments. Again, all great comments. Keep them coming in. If you're with us on YouTube, go ahead and hit the like button. If you're with us on Facebook, go ahead and give us a like or a love. In fact, we appreciate hearts as well. So give us as many hearts as you can. So moving forward, I ask about the concept of thoughtful disagreements, and I kind of want to provide some context based upon how Ray depicted it in his book. So, the concept of thoughtful disagreement is not a battle. It's a goal. Its goal is not to convince the other party that they are wrong or you are right, but to find out what is true and what to do about it. So, thoughtful disagreement is a concept that encourages a few things. Number one, it encourages open mindedness. Number two, understanding and constructive communication in the face of conflicts. So now, when we look at it, that changes the entire perspective, because these gentlemen just gave a great depiction of thoughtful disagreement without me even giving them that piece as well. Right. So now I want to dive into this next question. Right. So, how do you, in your own mind, how do you believe the principles that we just talked about? How do you believe the principles of thoughtful disagreement can be utilized to counteract polarization? Now, remember, polarization is that end that can be characterized by severe negative emotions and behaviors and little hope of reconciliation. So, how do you believe the principles of thoughtful disagreement can be utilized to counteract polarization, particularly in high charged topics such as politics, social issues, or even personal family matters like we've been talking about?
I would say that the I would say just positioning your argument, for lack of a better term, as I'm not attacking you. This is not about you. This is just about this, and this. Simply because we disagree doesn't mean I think you are a horrible person. It's not the case. It's just that on this point, we have a difference of opinion. I can acknowledge where you're coming from, but this is where I am coming from. Let's find a way to meet in the middle. I think the main issue is when most people have these type of disagreements, they take them as personal attacks instead of saying, all right, this is how he thinks about this. Oh, you just saying this because you don't like me. You understand what I'm saying? Or you're mad at me. And that's when it becomes an ego battle and a competition. And it's not really about that. It's like, I hear where you're coming from. I understand where you're coming from. I even see where you're coming from. But this is where I am coming from. So my perspective is different than yours, but I can see your perspective. I think that's a good way to kill a lot of these disagreements, just by acknowledging the other person and not just flat out saying you're wrong.
I think when I look at this, if you just take one of those things, like open-mindedness, being open-minded when you go into a disagreement, when you hear on the social media, you hear a lot of people talking about politics, right? And some people are super blue, some people are super red, and some people are kind of purple or on some spectrum of that of their political stance. But for the most part, well, not for the most part, but a lot of times what you'll see people do is they will take a side and they will agree with everything on there regardless. They won't be open-minded about anything that goes into hearing what the other person has to say on the other side. This goes for religion, relationships, all these different things like that. You can insert whatever into the conversation. But I think what happens is sometimes conversations don't go further because people are stuck there versus being open-minded. And I think that if you're being open-minded when you're having a disagreement, a thoughtful disagreement, I think that it can lead to a possible solution, even when you're talking about politics or social issues or personal family matters or anything like that. No shade, no pun. The show TGI Friday. Squirrel, I went there. But I think that as long as you're open-minded, I think you can have these conversations. You know what I mean? So I definitely think that if you take on open-mindedness and then add in some of the other principles that goes into it, I think that you can have these conversations. I think right now, if Chris was blue and I was red, I think that we could have a conversation about Roe versus Wade and it would go great because our ego wouldn't be involved and we would use some of these principles that go into the thoughtful disagreement to be able to come with. We don't even have to have a solution, but if we're open-minded, maybe we'll learn something. And not necessarily saying that we have to change our stance about whatever we're talking about, but we can learn something and the conversation doesn't have to go into the toilet at the end of the night.
I think when we're looking at it like this, people will get in their feelings, and instead of they'll stick to the fact. The fact is okay. That's how you see it. But then now you have to empathize with that person and may say, man, let me see if I can at least take a glance through the other person's lens and see why they say it's this way, why they see it that way, instead of just pointing out your facts. Because when we get into that, we just want to debate. We're looking to win an argument. And when we realize that if we're working for the same goal, if we're working on the same team, that polarization, I can't keep pulling this way, you pulling this way, but we're trying to go this way. So we both have to sit up there and we say, okay, let's both look at the facts. Let me listen to your argument and let's see what the end goal. And if the end goal is to build, we can't build while we're still tearing down. So if we're tearing one another down, we definitely not building.
See, I like this. So now I get to play, because if you listen to what Roland just said and you listen to what Uncle Junior just said, they were actually on opposite ends of the spectrum, because both one perspective said open-mindedness, right? And I'm agreeing 100%. I'm actually agreeing with both. We got to make it make sense, because I know somebody sitting like, hold on, wait, I'm not resonating with this. Make this make sense. So open-mindedness, and he gave the example of him and Chris, right, being two different political parties. They talk about a particular hot topic issue, and they can get to the point to where they don't necessarily have to come to an agreement, right? But they can learn from one another. But then you gave an example just now, and I keep going the wrong way. You gave an example just now to where I love your example, because one person's talking facts, another person's talking feelings. But you said the person that's talking facts, if they're only talking facts, then they're just looking at debate. But then this person must yield to the feelings to understand the feelings. But do they? I'm asking.
You see that daily where people will, like, they talk red and blue. I suggest you were talking Republican, Democrat, right side, left side, however you want to work it.
Yeah.
And people will argue, oh, well, abortion is wrong. Abortion is wrong. Yeah, you keep talking about abortion, but when the kid gets here, what you going to do for him? Are you concerned with that child now? Are you concerned about the school lunches, school activities after school? See, if you only concerned about them not killing the kid in the womb and not the kid after it's here, you're not really against that. You just against this process. And I think we have to look at the overall process and not just one little snippet of the whole situation, because you can't just be concerned with the embryo and not the child.
So a foundational principle leading to the understanding of the facts and the emotion based upon that fact. That's the thing.
Yes.
See, to me, that made perfect sense. But just to tell me, and I'm just being honest, just to tell me that if I'm talking facts and this person's talking emotions, and a lot of times what you'll find is that some people who talk emotions, those emotions that they're talking from are coming from a place that is totally oblivious to the facts. They will ignore the facts and put the emotions on Front Street and make you bow down to the emotions regardless of the facts. That's why I went through that just now, because I wanted to make sure that we're clear. There is a principle to play. Then once the principle is understood, right, the law, that's what we was just talking about. Once the principle is understood, then the clear identification of the facts and the emotions surrounding the facts is something that we can discuss. But the emotions don't supersede the principle. And if the fact is in line with the principle, then in some cases, you're going to have to learn to resonate with that fact, especially if it's a fact that you can't change. Mm-hmm. Case in point, let's just say they put a stop sign at the end of my street. There's nothing I can do to change. I don't like it. You know what I'm saying? I don't like that stop sign there, but I can feel however I want to feel, but it is what it is. And sometimes that's what we have to say. And brother, I'm with you. But I wanted to do that because I want to make sure that people have a clear understanding, because I don't want anybody to walk away from this conversation confused. Next partner. Politics. You see what I did now? My bad, man.
Yeah. Woo.
I'm about to say, I got nothing. All of that was deep, and it all was based on open-mindedness. That's really where it all stems from. Arguments lead to negative outcomes a lot of times because of subjectification and not objectification. Yes, I can feel a certain way, but I can pull myself out of it and look at a situation and say, all right, this is what it is. I may feel a way about it, but this is what it is. And to Unk's point, he's right. He and I can have opposing views and actually have a decent conversation and then not end up in fisticuffs. You understand what I'm saying? It's all about objectivity. Vic say it all the time on the Uncle Junior network. It's all about objectivity. Sometimes you got to pull yourself out of situations so that way you can see them clearly instead of through your own lens and your own ego.
Well, they said a lot, but I just say for me, when I think about it, is take your self identity out of the argument sometimes, especially when you're talking about social issues and politics, because a lot of times we speak from especially when you're talking about social issues, we speak from our personal position. But when you're talking to somebody that's in opposition, the more you talk feelings, the more not only do you give them ammo to combat and go back and forth with, but when you're talking about your personal opinion or even your personal experience, you defeat the progression of the conversation, right? And then you end up running in circles because you're trying to prove your personal experience, and for him those aren't facts, because if I don't have those experiences or I haven't seen those outcomes, I can't grasp what you're saying. So we're arguing in circles. So sometimes we have to learn how to pull ourselves out of the conversation and put in simply then it goes right back to what they just said. Then insert the facts that you can insert into the conversation. And then remember, when you do, because, and this is why I say it like this, right? Take your personal stuff out, because then at that point, what he's saying or she's saying in response is an attack on the information. So don't think everything that I say that's against what you said is a personal attack. Means I think you're a bad person, or I think no, I just don't think. Roland brought up I just don't think abortion is right. I don't think you're a terrible person because you did it. I just don't like this. And then let's argue the points and the facts. But once you go into your personal, now you want me to react to your emotions, and I don't know how to do that. I know how to analyze information. So I think that helps keeping it from being extremely polarizing, because a lot of people argue based upon me. This happened to me. This is what I did. This is what they did to me. This is what I saw. And if I grew up over here and I've never seen that, I can't relate. So now you take everything I say as if I'm punching you directly in the face, and I'm not.
And that's why I think that you can't be a solely fact-based person or a solely feelings-based person, because people will say, well, the police are there because of this, but they haven't grew up in that area. They don't understand the red line, and they don't understand the historical product that has groomed these people like this. So when you come into that area, now you're judging from said facts, which they are facts. They may be talking about crime. They are talking about this, and it's true, but there's a reason behind it. And if you never try to identify the reason, you'll always be over here with your stern fist. If you go off the feelings, you always be over here with your stern fist. Never sit up there and say, man, I have some accountability in this. Where's my portion?
Absolutely. I agree 100%. And I like the fact that you guys brought that, because again, and that's why this has always been my motto. If you can't identify the facts, we can't move beyond that. That's the issue for me. I'm only going to say that for me, right? For another person, if you can't harmonize with my emotions, they can't move beyond that. That's okay for them. But there is a wall between me and that person. And I'm just using this as an example. There is a wall between me and that person, because I would never put your feelings above the truth. That's the key. That's the thing that we need to understand. I would never put another person's feelings beyond the truth. And if anybody ever does that, then that's for them to do, but that's not something that I would do. And everybody understand. I hope everybody understand what I'm saying when I say the truth. I'm not talking about the facts. I'm talking the truth. It's two totally different things. When I'm talking about the truth, that is number one in my life. The minute that you try to put yourself above that, you're going to fail every time. It won't happen. Now, everything else is compared to the truth for me. And so with that being said, when we start talking situationally, if you're trying to put your emotions beyond that, because again, I'm going to look at the fact, compare the fact to the truth, and then say, okay, once that happens, now I understand why you feel this way. But if I cannot see it, then we need to talk about why you feel that way. And I'm okay with talking about why you feel that way. But if you're dancing around the truth just to paint the picture of how you feel, that probably ain't going to work. Not with me. Now, somebody else that may work, but I'm just talking about, again, me. And so I think that becomes an important part. And it's not that I'm not open-minded enough to hear what you're feeling. It's not that I'm not open-minded enough to hear your perspective. I'm hearing your perspective. I'm listening to your perspective. The issue is that sometimes, you can't get your perspective outside of your feelings. And I think sometimes that's where some people run into issues with that. So I greatly appreciate that. That took a little while longer than what I wanted, but I think it was great. Not your fault. That was probably my fault more so than anything. So we're going to skip that next question and we're going to dive into the 5 key points. And trust me, everybody, I'm getting your points. I'm gonna come to them, but just give me some time here. Welcome to the show, Mayberg. Good to see you, Kendrick James, Michelle Payne Aiken. Good to see you. I think Dr. Sweet. Good to see you. Yeah, the Spanish speaking Christelle D on LinkedIn. Good to see you. I did the translations too, fellas. I got it. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Okay, so let's dive into these 5 key points to thoughtful disagreement. So I want to go through the points quick because I may have to reduce this conversation down. So point number 1, like we talked about, is open-mindedness, right? So open-mindedness is all about being open to the idea that you might be wrong, or at least there may be different perspectives worth considering. Open-mindedness enables us to understand and appreciate alternative viewpoints. The next one is called mutual respect. Mutual respect, it's crucial to approach each other's viewpoint with respect and consideration. It's not about winning or proving the other person wrong, but about learning and arriving at a mutual understanding. Point number 3 is called constructive disagreement. Disagreements should be viewed as a constructive process aimed at finding out what's true and what's best, not about being right. The focus is in understanding and learning rather than debating and arguing. Number 4, which is by far my favorite, is idea meritocracy, a system where the best ideas win out, regardless of who they come from. In this system, thoughtful disagreements play a key role in filtering out the best ideas from diverse perspectives. Last but not least, my second favorite one is believability weighting. Consider the track record, expertise, and soundness of the thinking of the person expressing an opinion in a disagreement. This helps in weighing the value of the disagreement in the decision-making process. So that being said, let's jump back up to open-mindedness. We're going to start back with number 1. So open-mindedness, gentlemen, the question that I have for you when it comes down to open-mindedness is, in what ways, in what ways may an open-minded approach from both parents, Carlos and Maria, remember it was all about birth control, in what ways may an open-minded approach from both parents have influenced the discussion and eventual outcome?
I think if they would have an open mind from the beginning, it would have dismissed the ego portion. And I'm not saying that there was ego, but it would have eliminated that initially. When you go in with open-mindedness, you go in saying, you know what? I have my point. I know what I want. I know what I think. Let me be open to what the other person have to say, because I may learn something. And whatever I may learn or whatever I may hear may be beneficial to the overall solution that we're going to have in the outcome. So I think, like I said, if they would have been open-mindedness, it would have gave them the freedom and the flexibility in their mind to listen effectively to what the other person have to say and potentially gather more information to make a better outcome or solution at the end of the day.
I think in being open-minded, it puts the other person first, if that makes any sense. Like Unc said, I already have my preconceived, this is what I think. But let me be open-minded enough to love. Let me be open-minded enough to listen to this man that I pledged my life to see where he's coming from. And Carlos could be thinking, let me be open-minded enough to listen to my valued counsel about this because she has the expertise. You understand what I'm saying? It's about pulling yourself out of it and looking at the other person that you pledged pretty much your life to. Like, all right, this is a decision that involves our daughter. let me see where they're coming from before I just blurt out. You understand what I'm saying? Like, I have my knowledge, but he may have something that I didn't think about. She may have something I didn't think about. You understand what I'm saying? That's why, and like I said, man, Jordan Peterson's 12 rules to life, rule number 4 or 5. Always listen to somebody like they have something that you can learn from them. That to me is what being open-minded is. Actually having a stance, but listening to another stance that opposes your stance, but pulling a point out of it instead of trying to pick it apart. You understand what I'm saying?
I think it fosters an environment where the other party can feel safe, that it's a safe space for me to be open and honest. I'm not coming, I'm not reaching, I'm not throwing something out there. If I say the wrong word, you biting my head off. If I say something this way, you biting my head off. So now if it's like this, open-minded, now I can, whatever I say, you're listening to it so I can articulate it my way and not how you may want me to say it.
My bad. Man, I almost lost my train of thought. For me, it's more of the idea of what, for me, when I think of open-mindedness, what I try to do when I'm having a disagreement, especially with someone I value, right, is I try to say to myself what I actually heard them say, right? Because you're not always clear to the other person. You might be clear to yourself, but you're not always clear to the other person. So being open-minded sometimes causes you to play back and try to really fully understand what's being said so you can process it instead of just automatically shooting out an answer. Because the moment you showed up saying birth control, I already had an answer, and everything you said I didn't even hear because I was ready to shoot back out. No, right? But when I play back in my head and I say, this is what I actually heard her say, then I respond with a question for clarity. And that's what happens when you're open-minded in the conversation or in a disagreement. You ask questions for clarity and not for a setup. Once I realize you trying to set me up with your question in a disagreement, I'm not responding to that, because you're trying to play trickery and mind games like you a wizard or some crap. So that's not what I'm going to do. But let's have a conversation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask questions for clarity. And I'm going to say, so what specific, like we said that she's a medical professional. My response personally would say, well, why medically do our daughter need it? Is this something that I'm not tracking? Because then that might change the dynamic of my response. So to truly be open-minded, you have to clearly understand what is being said from the other side. So don't be afraid to ask questions. Get clarity, because clarity not knowing or admitting that you don't know is the best part of the conversation, because now I can get you to fully explain what you said. Now I'm not just jumping to conclusions or I'm not just assuming that this is how you feel about what you said, but not knowing what you're trying to convey is actually, or expressing that is actually a plus size to the conversation. Explain this to me. Break it down. Now let's move. Now I can respond more appropriately.
See, I like that because I have a habit, and I do it, especially in the midst of an important conversation. I would try to summarize what I heard the other person say, hoping that they will correct what I'm saying or confirm my thoughts based upon what they're saying. So let me get this straight. What I understand that you're saying is 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Then they'll be like, no, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay. So now that helps me to understand that I'm responding to the right thing. That is also a technique of active listening. I think the open-minded concept, if I can come back, I'm sorry. I think the open-minded concept for me is like it's more so of just dialogue without an opinion, right? So it's just flowing back and forth of ideas. It's kind of like brainstorming. You know, the rules of brainstorming is that every idea is welcome to the board, but there is no idea that we won't write on the board. So when we start looking at, you know, disagreements from an open-minded perspective, now we're just sharing ideas and we're listening. It doesn't matter how ridiculous the idea is, how emotionally charged the idea is, or how fact-based it is. It's just the exchange of information, like your information, then our information. And then as we're listening to it, we're combining it to see how we can put both of them together to come up with Voltron. Those of you who are old enough understood what I just said, right? We're combining it together to see if we can come up with the biggest and the best idea. Because I always say there is no absolute in man, period. I don't care who you are. You're not absolutely right. You're not absolutely wrong. But within the confines of both statements, you may find that there is rightness that exists. It may be 75 on this side, 25 on this side, or it may be 95 on this side and 5 on this side. But at the end of the day, when we look at the big picture, it should be that. Now, in my opinion, the issue here is that when you look at it, sometimes what you have to realize is that you'll run into an issue to where a person want to hold firm to their 5%. My 5% says this, and this is what I believe, and you need to accept my 5%. Well, no, I don't need to accept your 5% pure. I need for you to hear my 95% as well, or so forth and so on. So I think that's what we have to go after when it comes down to open-mindedness. Open-mindedness automatically looks at myself as that I don't have all the answers. I come to the conversation by not having all the answers. And I am seeking your feedback so that we can grow to a higher level of awareness collectively, because two is always smarter than one. I don't care how you look at it. So that's my final thoughts on that part. Any other thoughts, any injects on open-mindedness?
Being open-minded builds trust. Like Roland said, it builds trust. If you are open-minded enough to listen to me, I can come to you with anything. Because you are open-minded enough to listen to me and actually listen to me and not try to pick me apart or make me feel small because I don't agree or my perspective is different than yours. And if a person trusts you like that, they will tell you anything, especially your children. I've seen this. If a child can go to his mom or his father, or mother or father, and actually say, I need to talk to you and get some stuff off of their chest, and they actually have a dialogue, and that kid will tell you anything. For real.
Yeah. And I think can I get some free chicken, Uncle Junior? I think when a person actually exercises active listening, I think that's the first step to open-mindedness. When they go through the tenets of active listening, I'm not talking about head nodding and eye contact. I'm talking about the questions. I'm talking about summarizing. I'm talking about paraphrasing. That's their attempt to be open-minded. But based upon the response of the other person will show you whether or not they're in a position to be open-minded or not. So if you didn't get anything out of what I just said, right? Exercise, learn to paraphrase, learn to ask questions without judgment, and learn to summarize what you hear a person say. But the trick is that you have to listen without that conversation that you already have going on in your head. That's going to be the thing that prevents you hearing every word that person says. Tell this to be quiet, open these up, and then pay attention to what the other person is saying. Now we're exercising active listening. Active listening. Man, I don't know what's going on tonight. All right, moving on to the next point. The next point is mutual respect. Now, again, I'm not going to talk about mutual respect because of the time. Right now, I think we pretty much got the concept. I want to read it again, if you don't mind showing it. So mutual respect it's crucial to approach each other's viewpoint with respect and consideration. I want to pause right there before I move any further. With respect and consideration. A lot of people cry about, I just want you to respect you. You got to respect me. I'm the man of the house. You got to respect me, right? Or I deserve to be respected as well. But here's the deal. I've learned this a long time ago. If you be the change that you want to see, be the thing that you want in return. So if you want to be respected, be respectful. If you want someone to consider you, then try to consider somebody else. So do it first. Stop always asking for it. I want to say it again. Do it first. Stop always asking for it. So when you look at it, mutual respect is exhibited within the confines of the disagreement before you ever see. I'm sorry. Respect is exhibited within the confines of the disagreement before you can ever observe respect from your mate. You're automatically giving respect. So I want to make sure I say that as we're going forward. So continuing, the next one is constructive disagreement. I'm going to stop here. So disagreements should be viewed as a constructive process aimed at finding out what's true and what's best. Not about being right. The focus is on understanding and learning rather than debating and arguing. Let me say that part again. The focus is on understanding and learning rather than debating and arguing. That being said, gents, here's your question. What specific steps or methods could they have used to ensure their conversations was oriented towards mutual understanding rather than becoming a polarized debate?
I'll keep this simple. Actively listening, right? When you, like you just mentioned, when you're actively listening, you're listening there. And you're there just to listen, not to respond, not to do anything else. And then when your turn is over, shut your freaking pie hole and let the other person speak. And when they're done, they hush and you let that person speak. A lot of times conversations go astray because people don't take the time to just shut up and stop talking. You know what I mean? Just be quiet, just listen. And then when you're done listening, respond, and then the other person listen. So honestly, actively listening and keeping your mouth shut while the other person is talking. And then when it's their turn, do the same thing. And those specific steps will eliminate a lot of arguments, a lot of ego, a lot of other things, a lot of everything else that goes into why relationships end up going left and why people stand up 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning trying to hash something out that could have honestly been hashed out in 30 minutes if people would have actually listened and paid attention and kept their mouth shut and stayed on the talking point that we were actually talking about. That's mine.
Hey, I think he just put out a public service announcement, and if we missed it,
Pretty much.
I'm sure. All because you didn't stop talking don't mean you won the argument, and it definitely don't mean you was right. It just means you didn't allow the other person to word. And I think that's what I heard him say, and that's also what I had written down because that was a part of the point I wanted to make too, because you can't. You can't be trying to put the facts together and not debate if your mouth is the only one's open, right? And I do want to point out, I don't think we ever heard Coach use language like he used. That was close to aggressive, you know. I mean, not Coach Unk, my bad.
Yeah.
Unk.
Shut your
I'm about to sound innocent.
My bad. I couldn't stop thinking about it while I was talking. Because when I looked up, I looked at your face. My bad. But what you have to do is first you have to be willing to identify facts, right? because because I say something is a fact, don't mean it's a fact because I said it. So as we're having this conversation and this back and forth discussion, we have to be able to identify what is fact and what is not. And I think sometimes we go into a conversation, into an argument, thinking that between me and you, all the answers are here. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes you need to outsource information so that you can know what's fact, especially when you're talking about health and medical or anything with my children, right? If we just gonna put them on birth control, we just gonna get them a shot, or we just gonna do this just because, especially if there's no warning signs showing up. Well, let's outsource information. Let's figure out what are the facts concerning this situation. Let's stop just thinking because I showed up, the answer is here. No, it's not. Most times it's not. A lot of time, and as parents, if any parents out there know that I'm not lying, as parents, half the time we think we got the answers just to find out we didn't have the answers. But then when we get down to child number 3 or 4, we figure out we got the answers because we did it wrong with 1, 2, and 3, and we saw the effects of being wrong. So sometimes between me and you, we ain't got the answers. So I think that's the first. To me, that's the first step. Added to what Coach said, shut your power. I keep saying Coach Unc. Okay.
You about it? Okay. I think first and foremost, I got to control me. I have to be able to stay calm, control me, so that I don't make it personal. I'm not just disagreeable. I'm not putting the other person down, because sometimes we can be so cocky and arrogant in our knowledge of the situation that we want to minimize the other person to make us seem big and seem more knowledgeable. And we're really being inconsiderate of the whole of the matter. And not use when you use I statements, it should be about how you feel about the situation. But you can't make what you feel about the situation the all in all of the situation, because it's not about you. In this situation, it's about the daughter. So it should be, how will this help her? Not how I'm going to feel about it, how mom going to feel about it, but how is it going to benefit her? Because if she's not the problem, but she has the problem that we're trying to rectify, first I'm going to take me out of it. So I won't get in my emotions, and I won't be livid, and I won't be, like, yeah. We can't rah ourselves through a situation, especially when it's with a loved one. And especially if we want to make sure that the whole is still beneficial together. So I think first take me out of it, so that, take my feelings out of it, in other words, so I can stay calm and I'm in control of me. Because I can't control the situation, but I can control me.
Well, I guess you all pretty much said it. And it's funny how open-mindedness, mutual respect, and mutual understanding are all interconnected. This is basically linking all of them together. Open-minded, it means I'm not thinking about how I feel about it, but I'm controlling me. I got a mutual respect for you because you're my wife. I got a mutual respect for you because you're my husband. And we need to come to a mutual understanding about what to do with our child. So let's figure it out. All of this is connected to me.
When Chris say this, I'm just like, man, he make it seem like this stuff.
See,
you know what I mean?
Wait. Let me stop you. It is simple, but it is not easy. It is simple, but it is not easy. It is not easy at all, because a lot of this also involves the removal of ego and the removal of needing to be right and control the situation because you feel a certain way or you feel like you hold a position in something. But it is simple when you all know this. We've been doing this for a little over a year. I'm a lowest common denominator kind of dude. I'm a bottom line kind of dude. This is all bottom line, simple stuff. But we all are different in how we do things, how we convey things, how we understand things. So it's not really easy. And to Roland's point, we can be so inundated in the knowledge that we think that we're right to the point where we're not even willing to listen to another party. Or we can be so deep into our feelings that we won't even want to listen to the facts that are on the table. That's why I said it's not easy. It's just simple.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of where I was meant, because I think sometimes when people look at shows and they look at podcasts like this and they say, oh man, Power Perspective, like, man, Coach is always on. They make it seem like this stuff is so easy. Roland always spitting fact, Angry Man, you know what I mean? Everybody's like just spitting out this stuff and they make it seem like it's so easy to do. But the reality of it is, like you said, in theory, yes, but the actual application of doing it, it may take some work, it may take some effort. And the reason why we're having this conversation, part of the reason why, because like with, being open-mindedness or having open-mindedness, some people may not even think about that as something that they need to have when they go into conversation. So I just kind of just wanted to just say that piece that, sometimes we talk and it may seem like things are easy, but some of these things and actually acting them out, or putting them into play or into process can be challenging at some time. It takes some work.
I think, and this is just me basing everything off of the conversations that we have all had, and the conversations that I have seen, and the conversations that I have had with other people. It is really simple. And the reason it is not easy is because I believe fear. People are afraid. People are afraid of being taken advantage of. People are afraid of being looked at like they less than. People are afraid of being looked at like they punks because they actually understand somebody's perspective and can actually get it and not win. You understand what I'm saying? It's like everybody is afraid of something that really doesn't even matter when you actually apply it to the situation. But that's just me.
So I'm loving this, and I'm glad this came to the point of conversation, because keep in mind we're talking about constructive disagreements. Let's be completely honest. This thing here is going to always protect me. So the reason why we have a disagreement is because I'm trying to make it about me. I don't care what type of disagreement about. It can be a disagreement about the color of this coffee cup. You can tell me that this thing is black. I'm sitting here telling you it's brown. I'm looking at it, I got it in my hand, it's brown. You're saying it's black. But all I have to do is yield to what you're saying and just say, okay. But at the end of the day, I want to go back and forth with you about the color that I know it is, when I don't necessarily have to. But I choose to do it. Why? To protect me. It's all about me. That's what this flesh does, right? Everybody goes through it. Everybody has to deal with it. Everybody has to tame it. You can tell me you're good at it all you want to. If I follow you around for a whole day, I promise you I can point out that you're not as good as you think you are. No one is exempt from that. The challenge with this particular point is that it says constructive disagreement, which means that we're intentionally building something. So that means that we got to take this thing and push it all the way on the ground and set every ego aside and partner with one another and collaborate and say, what do we want to come from this point that we can't see eye to eye on? That's totally different. Because if you're already polarized, you're already stuck to your point, and you got your mitts wrapped around it in a fist, and you're not turning it loose. I hear what you're saying, but this thing is brown. I don't care what you say. It's brown. And I'm going to put a little sass behind it as well. But constructive disagreement. How can we construct anything if we can't come. So what it does, it makes you strip yourself of the ego and try to build the bridge with the other person and said, okay, you know what? Maybe I get your perspective. Maybe I get it. Maybe I see why you're saying that this thing is black. I can understand why. I don't agree with it, but I see why you're saying it's black. You don't have the lighting that I have. So your lighting is a little muted because of the airways and all that other great stuff. I'm under photography lights. So I'm seeing it for what it really is. Plus I bought it, so I know what color it is. Right? So that
I
kind of
could be
gives me
colorblind.
You could be colorblind, absolutely. I was about to get to that point in a minute, but thank you. You're absolutely right. You could be colorblind.
I am colorblind to a certain extent. Like shades of colors throw me off. That's why
So-
you would always see me in blacks and blues and things like that. Because if I actually tried to actually put something together doing something else, I would look nuts.
Now, watch this. This is what constructive disagreement looks like. So, knowing that he's colorblind, what colors can you see? Then he tell me. Now, instead of presenting him with colors, not saying that he's colorblind to this, we're just using this as an example. But instead of presenting him with colors that he can't see, I only present him with colors that he can see. So now that's different. And this might be the color he can't see, to be honest with you. But I'm just, but that's what it looks like. It makes you push your ego aside and collaborate with the other person, which makes the disagreement no longer important, but the other person important. That's the idea behind constructive disagreement. So now you're partnering.
Oh no.
You finally got coach.
Oh no.
Finally got him.
Not coach.
Finally got him.
Not
And
coach.
Ready.
No. Come back.
Let's give him a
You
second.
were
See what
going.
He's coming back.
Okay. I'm sorry. Can you guys hear me now?
They said you
Yes.
was about that colorblind stuff, man.
He's back. Let's go.
Yeah, AT&T was trying to prevent me from getting this information out. But so
Oh.
that's what constructive disagreement is. And even in this instance of Carlos and Maria, only thing they had to do is like pick a point. We got the child is important, right? But what about the child? What is the number one focus, right? The number one focus is health. That's number one. Okay, what's the number two focus? The number two focus is, let's just say, prevention of sexual promiscuity, right? So let's just say in that order, that's what they're saying. So child, health, prevention of sexual promiscuity. So now, number one is we both agree on the child. True. Number two, do we both agree on the health? True. Number three, do we both agree on the sexual promiscuity? True. However, which one do you side with? So now mama's saying health, daddy's saying sexual promiscuity, right? So hell, why y'all smiling? Yeah, see, they chatting in the back. I know they are. I know it. I'm gonna get demons. So if mama's saying health, why are you saying health? Well, because I learned this at work, and this is what I understand they say at work, and so forth and so on. How does this affect our child's health? Right. So go back up to the child. How does this affect our child health? Well, it could help her. What? So no, not the things that you learn from work. Is she in some type of health crisis like we talked about last week? If the answer is yes, then we go with mama's side. You see what I'm saying? Because now she is the subject matter expert in her field, and I'm kind of putting the wagon before the horse. That kind of gets us to the idea meritocracy piece, right? So mama is the subject matter expert in her field, and because we're concerned about the health of the child, let's go with that one. But if it's just good idea because of where you work and all of the great and wonderful things that you're learning, I don't care about that. I care about the child. You see what I'm saying? The child is number one, not your job. Your job is outside my house. I understand it's part of your ecosystem, but it ain't part of my system, right? It's not part of the system. So child, health, sexual promiscuity. So just because it's good news and information you got from work, does it add value? Does it help? No, probably not. Does it? What about this part right here? Okay, if we can agree to this, you're gonna have to convince me to this, because now, like we talked about last week, putting her on birth control might help her to believe, or might have her to believe that I'm clear, I'm green, I'm good to do it. So That's the way that we have to have that conversation. So that takes us to, oh man, I think we can get this last one in. Can we just jump? Which one? Idea meritocracy or believability waiting? No, we got time for one.
Believability waiting.
Believe it. Everybody go. Okay. Gentleman at the bottom. Okay. So let's go.
Rock. Let's rock.
Let's rock with it. All right. Believability waiting. So consider the track record, expertise, and soundness of the thinking of the person expressing an opinion in disagreement. This helps in weighing value. I'm sorry, that's what I was talking about before. This helps in weighing the value of the disagreement in the decision-making process. So that being said, the question here is, could the perspective of each party, their track record, expertise, or logical reasoning have shifted the outcome of their discussion? And if so, how?
Well, if we're talking two people who have pledged their lives to each other, then there has to be a level of trust in what they say to each other. So I would say yes, but not in a way of like, I'm just challenging what you say just to challenge what you say. It's more along the lines of, all right, your track record in this has been your track record in this has been really, really good. My track record in this has been really, really good. Let's meet in the middle. I understand you got this side of it because you work in the industry, but are you trying to hear my side of it because I actually am with her and this is how I'm really feeling about it? So I guess yes and no. I don't know. Let me hear what y'all got to say.
I'm gonna say yes, and it could be for the positive or the negative. It could work both ways. You know, if both people, you know, if one person's kind of like they're always making bad decisions, like, and it doesn't mean. Well, I want to say they're making bad decisions. They make decisions that may not produce a valuable or valid outcome. I'll say it like that. But I think, you know, it could. I think the answer is yes, if I had to give a yes or no answer, because here's how. Could the perspective of each party, their track record, expertise, or logical reason have shifted the outcome of their discussion? And if so, how? Yes. If when you're having conversation, at least for me, I think about those things. So when I talk to Chris, and we just go back to that other conversation, the red and blue, I'm going to think about how has our conversation been going in the past? You know, how have the talking points that he have been saying, have they come to fruition, or he just talking out of the side of his neck? I'm looking at all of these things. I'm going back in my mental Rolodex and thinking about these conversations. And if I know that Chris has been solid with his conversations, his perspective, all of these different things, he's very logical in his approach and all these different things, then yeah, it can definitely persuade the conversation or the outcome of this decision. And if every time that we talk it's blah 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 and it's going as left, that can also determine the outcome of the decision at the end of the day. So I think yes, on the surface for those reasons why. But like Chris said, I am definitely willing to hear what else you guys have to say as well.
I think in this situation with Carlos, Maria, and Isabella, I think it's Isabella, the mother, Isabella's weight, her job and being a woman has to be weighed a little more than his feelings. Because one, she's in the profession, so she knows the ins and outs, the workings of the medication and what physical capabilities it may have with her daughter. And she's a woman, and I won't say a lot. Can't give you any stats, but usually daughters convey more information, especially physically, with their mothers. So that she may know the daughter may take after the daddy and may be promiscuous. Daddy don't know. Daddy think that's his angel, but she out there slanging him. So you never know. So you got to weigh the mother's her knowledge of her daughter and her knowledge of the medical expertise in this a little more than Carlos's feelings about the situation when we're talking. Not that it weighs more on the outcome, but bringing information in, it kind of can sway him faster than his feelings can sway her, should be, because hers is more confined to the daughter and not just the overall what could happen.
I'm going to say yes. It can, right? And I'm glad that finally Coach in his last dissertation agreed with me from last week. He wouldn't say it last week and let me win the argument, but I would agree when it comes to the expertise if there's a cause and not even effect, if there's a cause to the need for the medication. I'm just not, me personally, I'm just not big on stuff in somebody's body just because it's Tuesday, right? So if we have a reason to do it, by all means. And I do get it, right? Sometimes one parent gets more information from the child than the other, right? Mother, father, depend on the child, right? Depend on the relationship. I get that. But I'm also going to trust that you're going to convey good information to me of whatever they got going on. Because if you don't, then every time you come to me with an issue, I'm like, why are you even asking me? Because I don't have no information to argue. Like that's just me. That's how I think. If you withhold information from me, I really don't understand how can I even have a valued opinion in this conversation, because you have all the facts and I don't. But that right there will create a track record for me. And then that becomes a future problem. So, and I only went there because it plays itself out. So yes, track record plays a part. Expertise plays a part. Ability to critical think. I forgot how you worded it. But that plays a part. I have to. Here's the thing. I'm not gonna say no names, but I know a person really well, and I would say her name, but I got to go to sleep. She don't give good directions. So, if she tells, listen, so if she tells me how to get someplace I've never been to, I'm gonna say, Roger that. I'm gonna get in the car and I'm gonna call Roland. Hey, Roland, you ever been there? Because he's like he is a map. He's like, he's not a map reader. He's a map. So I'm gonna call Roland because I know she's gonna tell me left, and it probably have been right. But I know that because that's her track record. She's not good at giving directions. Don't mean I love her less. I'm just not gonna ask her how to get to Walmart because I'm gonna end up at HEB in Temple, right? So that has to be a factor in whether or not your opinion at this point holds as much weight as it should in this specific issue. So that's me. Love you, baby. If you watching,
yeah, he said it now. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
After putting all out there, now you saying it.
I ain't trying to clean it up.
And for the record, Roland give directions like go down and look at the second tree, make a left at the second tree, and you're gonna see Mr. Johnson down there smoking a cigarette. Turn by Mr. Johnson.
Piggly Wiggly.
See what I'm saying? Oh my God.
Oh,
Listen,
It'll be accurate too.
absolutely, it will be accurate. Listen, man, I wanted to again appreciate you guys. You guys are amazing, and every week, man, you just it is. I am awestruck every week just by the conversations that we're able to have, and it is my sincere desire that as we have these conversations, that everybody finds value in them. And I also want to say the same thing when it comes down to the people in the chat. Again, this is one of those weeks to where we were jam-packed full of information, so I didn't get to the chat as much as I wanted to. But you guys added such value. So I just want to thank you in advance before we get into our final thoughts And Nick D said, why do I feel like you're talking about me, Gaddy? if I tell you left, definitely go right. So she's gonna give you the wrong information. So listen, this takes us to the bittersweet moment of tonight's conversation, which is our final thoughts. So with that being said, what we're going to do is relinquish the floor, and we're going to start off with our brother, Mr. Chris.
My final thought is relatively simple. Like I was saying earlier, the things that we discussed the past couple of weeks are very, very simple, but they really are not easy. And they require a lot of relinquishing of ego. Get out of your own way. Everything is not about you. There are things that need to be discussed that are bigger than you. Sometimes, no matter how much information that you have, you are going to have to pull yourself out of it so that way you can see everything clearly. Get out of your ego. Move. Get out of the way. That's my final thought.
Whew. I'm gonna be typically me, right? I'm gonna read a scripture that is definitely about salvation, but the principle in which it lies in it is good to me. Matthew 16:25 says, "Whosoever will save his life will lose it, and whosoever loses his life for my sake shall find it." And I thought of that scripture because the thought came to my mind. Sometimes we are the hardest thing. Not sometimes, you are the hardest thing to overcome. The reason why the conversation is hard sometimes, it's not because of her, it's not because of him, it's because you are hard to conquer. And the principle I find there is that when we can just start to take ourselves out of the picture, when we can begin to become more selfless, when we can begin to deny self more, then we can begin to find it. I love how he said that. Not save. He could have said we'll save it, but he said we'll find it, because the answers that we're looking for lies within taking you out of the equation. The more you try to implement you in your feelings, the more the conversation gets lost, the more the goal gets lost, the more the sought after outcome gets lost. So don't get lost in self. We have to start to overcome ourselves in order to have successful disagreements and conversations and progress our family towards the mark. That's all I got tonight.
Conflicts and disagreements all fall up under the big umbrella of conversations and just getting along with your fellow man. If you live long enough and you meet enough people, you're going to have disagreements and you're going to have conflict. That's just part of it. That's just part of life with someone. And as an elementary school counselor, these are some of the things that we teach elementary students: how to deal with conflict, how to settle disagreements, how to get along with others. So just because we learned it as a child does not mean that that is not something that we need to constantly be aware of and consistently work on. You know what I'm saying? Because we are going to come across times in our life where we're going to disagree with people and there we're going to have conflict. But how we handle those things are going to can determine our relationships with other people. It can determine how happy we are as a person, and it can determine whether or not we stay married or we get divorced with someone. So the fact that we are going to have conflict and disagreements in our life and the outcomes could be so devastating is it's very important that we start to get good, or that we get good at learning how to dismantle conflicts and how to disagree effectively. It's okay to disagree, and you can disagree with somebody without being disrespectful and without being disagreeable. That's all I got.
I guess it's my time for my short dissertation. Yeah, that's a dig. These brothers have spoken eloquently on the subject, and mine is short and sweet. Remove self, listen more than you talk, and stay focused on the end goal. And remember that we aren't enemies, and we can talk to and about anything when we remember those things. That's all I have. I ask that you would just hang those things on the clothesline of your mind and allow the Holy Spirit to blow on it.
All right. Well, thank you guys again. Greatly appreciate it. I'm bypassing final thoughts tonight because I don't have any final thoughts. I think you just heard from four gentlemen who just clearly articulated the final thoughts. So that's it. I echo what they say. So that being said, I just want to again thank you guys for all the great and wonderful things you do every week. Thank you guys in the chats, man. You're you're greatly valued, and we greatly appreciate you. Even those people who do believe that Roland and Gaddy is funny talking about dissertations. That's okay. I'm good. It's all right. I also want to take the opportunity to appreciate those people who actually give to the channel. Prime example, Michelle Ray. Thank you so much for your support. It's again always valued. We greatly appreciate you. And again, we try our best to give you the best versions of ourselves when we hit the live button every week. Reminder, tomorrow morning, 10:30, we'll be at it again. Not me and these gentlemen, but me and Onita. We're going to be talking about humility. So if you have nothing else to do on a Saturday morning, just join us on this channel at 10:30, and we'll continue with it. Listen, again, we appreciate you and we value you. So just great. And make sure that you have a great and wonderful rest of your evening and have a fantastic weekend. And we'll see you guys here again next week at the same time for the Hearts of Men podcast. Be blessed.